helped me reach 2,000 subscribers. I never expected the life I built with my wife, Jessica, to crumble so completely in a single afternoon. My name is Ryan, I'm 35, and for years I believed our marriage was built on trust, love, and shared respect. But that day, at what was supposed to be a simple office gathering, I discovered a betrayal so blatant it left me speechless. The warning signs had been there for months. Jessica had become distant, increasingly critical, and unusually secretive. Compliments disappeared, replaced by sharp remarks and subtle digs. She would joke about me in ways that hurt, and I often brushed them off as casual teasing. But deep down I sensed a growing divide, one I couldn't ignore any longer. Her boss, Mark, had always been a friendly presence at her office. I trusted Jessica, so I never imagined anything inappropriate between them. Still, there was something about the way she laughed at his jokes, leaned in during conversations, and lingered just a little too long when he was around that unsettled me. I tried to dismiss it as harmless, but my gut told me otherwise. The gathering that day was supposed to be casual, a networking lunch with colleagues at a local restaurant. I arrived with a mix of nervous anticipation and mild irritation, expecting a normal social event. But the moment I walked in, the energy between Jessica and Mark was unmistakable. They were close, too close. I caught subtle touches, shared glances, and the kind of laughter that felt intimate, almost secretive. Then came the moment that shattered my composure entirely. Jessica, with a playful grin, turned to a group of colleagues and whispered something I couldn't fully hear. A few laughs followed, and I sensed immediately that whatever she said was about me. And then it happened. She casually sat on Mark's lap as if it were the most normal thing in the world. My world stopped. Time seemed to slow. Every instinct screamed that this was beyond inappropriate. It was a public declaration of betrayal. My mind raced. The months of subtle humiliation, the whispered criticisms, the dismissive behavior. It all made sense now. Jessica had been undermining me for months, building a narrative that I couldn't satisfy her, all while being physically intimate with someone else in front of witnesses. I didn't react immediately. I knew that if I lost my composure, the situation would spiral out of control. Instead, I took a deep breath, observing every detail. Names, faces, reactions, everything mattered. By the end of that lunch, I had made a decision. This betrayal could not remain hidden. Everyone involved needed to understand the truth. After that lunch, I could hardly think straight. The humiliation, anger, and disbelief swirled inside me like a storm I couldn't escape. I returned home trying to calm myself, but the image of Jessica sitting on Mark's lap, smiling as if nothing was wrong, burned in my mind. I knew I had to confront her, but not recklessly. I needed control, clarity, and proof. That evening, I waited until the kids were asleep and the house was quiet. Jessica was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, oblivious to the turmoil inside me. I sat across from her, my hands folded, my heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but low. She looked up, feigning innocence. "About what?" she asked, her tone casual, almost mocking. "About what you did today," I replied, fixing her with a calm stare. "Sitting on Mark's lap, telling everyone that I couldn't satisfy you. I saw it all." Her smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of fear. "Ryan, it wasn't like that. It was just a joke. People laugh." "Was it a joke when you've been undermining me for months? Was it a joke when you made me feel inadequate in private? Or when you humiliated me in front of friends and colleagues?" I asked, my voice rising slightly though controlled. Her silence confirmed what I already knew. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was psychological, emotional. A campaign to diminish me while elevating herself in the eyes of others. "I trusted you," I said, leaning forward. "I trusted you with my respect, my love, my life. And you chose to destroy it publicly, privately, everywhere. And with my blessing too, because I never would have imagined you could do this." Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't think you'd find out," she whispered. "I didn't have to find out," I replied. "You told everyone. You acted as if it was normal to betray me. That's the reality, Jessica. And now everyone knows who you really are, not just to me but to yourself too." She tried to speak, but I shook my head. "No excuses. No justifications. This is who you are. And it changes everything between us." At that moment, the room felt suffocating. The betrayal was tangible, almost physical, a weight pressing down on my chest. I realized then that the public humiliation at lunch was nothing compared to the private devastation she had inflicted over months of lies, manipulation, and deceit. I spent the rest of the night planning my next steps. Exposure had to be complete, not just for myself, but for everyone who had witnessed her actions. If deception thrives in silence, then truth must shine through, no matter how painful. The days after the confrontation were tense and surreal. Jessica avoided me, hiding behind forced smiles and empty apologies, but the truth had already been revealed. Colleagues whispered when she entered the room. Friends who had once looked to me for guidance now gave cautious glances, unsure how to act around a marriage that had collapsed in plain sight. I realized quickly that this betrayal had consequences far beyond my relationship with Jessica. Trust, once shattered, rippled outward, affecting perceptions, connections, and the very foundation of social bonds I had taken for granted. Yet I found a strange relief in the exposure. For months, I had been carrying the weight of suspicion and anxiety. Now, with the truth out, that burden was lifted. I confronted myself as much as I confronted her. Could I have seen the signs earlier? Could I have intervened before this reached a public stage? The answers didn't undo the pain, but they clarified the reality. Deception thrives when ignored, and sometimes, the most loving act is to face it head-on. The next weeks were a careful dance. I set boundaries not from spite but from necessity. I distanced myself from Jessica and Mark while focusing on restoring my dignity, self-respect, and control over my own life. Every interaction was measured. I refused to be drawn into further manipulation or public drama. Friends and family were supportive, offering perspective and comfort. They reminded me that betrayal is never a reflection of your worth, but rather a mirror of the deceiver's character. And slowly I began reclaiming normalcy. Mundane routines, small victories, quiet evenings, things I had taken for granted before trust was broken. The children were the hardest part. Watching them process the cracks in our family, knowing they had been witnesses to lies and betrayal, was almost unbearable. I focused on open communication, reassurance, and maintaining a sense of stability, emphasizing that my love for them remained unwavering despite the chaos adults had created. Months later, the sting of betrayal had softened, though the memory remained vivid. I learned that exposure is not just about revenge. It's about clarity, closure, and the courage to face reality. Deception may cause temporary pain, but truth provides freedom, painful as it may be, and the power to rebuild. Sitting alone one night, reflecting on everything, I understood that betrayal does not define you unless you let it. I had lost trust, yes, but I had regained myself. And in the quiet aftermath of exposure, I found strength I never knew existed. The lesson was clear. The darkest betrayals illuminate the deepest truths, and in facing them, we discover the resilience to move forward.